In this episode, we shift from thinking about one investment at a time to thinking about many investments together, the way a careful manager looks at a whole collection instead of a single item. When people are new to governance, it is very common to picture funding decisions as a series of isolated approvals, where each project competes for attention and then runs on its own track. That approach feels simple, but it often leads to messy results, because the organization ends up with duplicated efforts, gaps in important capabilities, and a budget that drifts toward whoever makes the loudest argument. Portfolio thinking is different because it treats IT investments as a set of bets the enterprise is making to achieve its goals, and those bets must be balanced, monitored, and adjusted over time. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain what it means to manage investments like a portfolio, why reporting changes when you adopt that mindset, and how leaders use portfolio views to make smarter choices without getting lost in project details. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A portfolio is not just a list of projects, and it is not the same thing as a schedule of work. A portfolio is a managed collection of investments that are grouped together because they support the same enterprise goals, draw from the same funding pool, or share the same governance decision makers. The important word is managed, because portfolio management implies ongoing choices about what to start, what to continue, what to speed up, what to slow down, and what to stop. In an isolated project mindset, stopping a project feels like failure, so organizations keep funding work that no longer makes sense. In a portfolio mindset, stopping or reshaping an investment can be a sign of good governance, because it means the organization is paying attention to results and adapting to reality. This is why portfolio management fits governance so well. Governance is about ensuring decisions lead to outcomes, not about protecting individual projects from change. A helpful way to understand the portfolio idea is to think about balance across different kinds of value and different kinds of risk. An enterprise usually needs some investments that keep the lights on, some that improve efficiency, some that reduce risk, and some that create new capabilities for growth. If you approve projects one by one, you can accidentally overfund one category while starving another, and the organization may not notice until a major issue occurs. For example, an organization might pour money into new customer features while underfunding reliability and resilience, then suffer outages that hurt trust and revenue. Portfolio management pushes leaders to look at the overall mix and ask whether the set of investments matches the enterprise strategy and risk posture. This does not require advanced math for beginners. It requires clear categories and a willingness to compare investments using common measures. The goal is not to eliminate risk, but to choose a mix of investments that makes sense for the organization's priorities. Managing investments as a portfolio also forces the organization to recognize dependencies, because projects rarely deliver value alone. A project might depend on data quality improvements, identity modernization, or process changes that are funded elsewhere, and isolated reporting often hides those relationships. Portfolio views make dependencies visible by tracking groups of investments that together create an enterprise capability. This matters because leadership decisions are often really decisions about trade-offs between connected work streams. If you delay one foundational investment, you may unintentionally delay benefits from several other investments that rely on it. Conversely, if two projects are both trying to solve the same foundational need, portfolio management can reveal that duplication early enough to consolidate effort. The practical outcome is that the enterprise gets more value from the same budget because it reduces redundant work and accelerates the capabilities that unblock multiple outcomes. Reporting changes in a portfolio approach because the audience and purpose are different from a project status update. A project status update tends to focus on activities like milestones, tasks completed, and issues the team is handling. Portfolio reporting, on the other hand, is meant to support decisions at the governance level, so it must emphasize value, risk, and alignment, not just progress. Leaders need to know which investments are producing expected outcomes, which are underperforming, and how the overall set is tracking against enterprise goals. This means portfolio reporting often uses consistent measures across investments, such as expected versus realized benefits, cost trends, delivery confidence, and risk exposure changes. The point is not to drown leaders in numbers, but to give them a clear picture of where attention is needed. If reporting cannot lead to a decision, it is often just noise, and portfolio management is designed to reduce that noise. A portfolio mindset also changes how you interpret time, because different investments have different horizons and different patterns of benefit. Some investments produce benefits quickly, like simplifying a workflow that reduces manual effort within a few months. Other investments are foundational, like improving core data architecture, where benefits may be delayed but widely shared. In an isolated project mindset, foundational work can look slow and unexciting, so it gets cut, even though it enables many outcomes later. Portfolio management helps prevent that mistake by explicitly labeling investments by type and horizon, then evaluating them as a group rather than expecting every investment to behave the same way. For beginners, it helps to remember that not every investment should have the same success story. Some investments protect the enterprise, some streamline operations, and some create new options, and good governance recognizes the role each one plays. Another key idea is that portfolios require clear criteria for comparison because choosing between investments requires a common language. This does not mean every benefit must be reduced to a single number, but it does mean the organization must decide what dimensions matter most. Those dimensions often include strategic alignment, measurable outcome impact, risk reduction effect, cost and resource demand, complexity, and dependency load. When criteria are clear, reporting becomes more meaningful because everyone knows what the colors or categories represent and why an investment is considered healthy or at risk. Without shared criteria, portfolio reviews become arguments about anecdotes and personal preferences. With shared criteria, portfolio reviews become a structured conversation about evidence and trade-offs. This is one of the biggest governance advantages of portfolio thinking because it makes decisions more consistent across time and across leaders. Portfolio management also encourages the idea of rebalancing, which is the practice of adjusting the mix of investments as conditions change. In everyday life, you might change your plans if something becomes more urgent, if costs increase, or if a better option appears. Enterprises need the same flexibility because markets shift, threats evolve, and business priorities change. Rebalancing might mean shifting funds from a lower value effort to a higher value one, accelerating work that supports a new strategy, or pausing an investment until a dependency is ready. The important point is that rebalancing should be driven by agreed measures and enterprise priorities rather than by sudden political pressure. Portfolio reporting provides the evidence to support rebalancing decisions, which makes those decisions easier to defend. When the organization learns that budgets can move based on performance and relevance, teams also learn to focus on outcomes rather than just staying busy. A common misunderstanding is that portfolio management is only for very large organizations with huge budgets and complex programs. In reality, the need for portfolio thinking starts as soon as an organization has more potential work than resources to fund it. Even a small organization must decide whether to invest in better security controls, new customer features, operational improvements, or staff training. And those choices are a portfolio choice even if the word portfolio is never spoken. The difference is whether the organization makes those choices intentionally and transparently or makes them by accident through disconnected approvals. Portfolio thinking can be as simple as maintaining a clear view of all active investments, categorizing them by purpose, tracking a few consistent measures, and revisiting priorities on a regular cadence. Beginners should not assume this is a specialized technique. It is a basic governance discipline applied to a set rather than a single item. Once you see it that way, it becomes easier to explain and easier to spot in real organizations. Managing and reporting investments as a portfolio also supports accountability because it becomes clearer who owns outcomes and who owns decisions. In isolated project reporting, accountability often collapses into a focus on whether a team delivered a thing on time, even if the thing did not produce value. In portfolio reporting, the conversation shifts to whether the enterprise is getting the outcomes it funded and whether decisions are being adjusted when outcomes are not appearing. that encourages leaders to ask better questions, such as whether benefits are being realized, whether adoption is happening, and whether risks are increasing or decreasing across the investment set. It also encourages a healthier culture around change, because an investment can be modified without treating the team as the problem. The team may have delivered well, but the portfolio may need a different mix, and portfolio management gives the organization a non-personal way to make that shift. Over time, this improves trust and governance because decisions feel evidence-based and consistent. To make the portfolio idea concrete, imagine an enterprise with 10 active IT investments that all seem reasonable on their own. 2 are focused on reducing operational incidents. 3 are focused on customer experience. 2 are focused on compliance needs. And 3 are focused on internal efficiency. If you only look at each project separately, you might approve them all, then realize later that the same specialized people are needed across many efforts, causing delays everywhere. Portfolio management would reveal resource constraints and encourage sequencing, consolidation, or reprioritization based on enterprise outcomes. It would also reveal whether the overall set is aligned with what leadership says matters most this year, such as reliability and trust. If reliability is the top enterprise priority, but most funding is going to new features, the portfolio view exposes that mismatch early enough to correct it. Portfolio reporting would then track whether incident rates and customer experience measures are improving across the set, not just whether individual teams hit milestones. As we close, remember that treating IT investments like a portfolio means treating them as a managed collection of decisions tied to enterprise outcomes, not as isolated projects that succeed or fail on their own. Portfolio management emphasizes balance, dependency awareness, consistent comparison criteria, and the ability to rebalance funding and attention as evidence changes. Portfolio reporting supports governance by focusing on value, risk, alignment, and realized outcomes instead of only tracking activities and delivery dates. When you learn to think this way, you stop asking whether a single project looks busy and start asking whether the enterprise is getting the improvements it intended from the total set of spending. That mindset is exactly what strong governance requires, because it keeps investment decisions connected to strategy and performance over time, even as priorities and conditions shift.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.